Hello everyone, my name is Bipul and I am the head of GIS at Aspire Blue. We specialize in developing cutting-edge space-based LiDAR technology to revolutionize Earth observation and environmental monitoring. Thank you for joining today's session on how Earth observation enhances soil health monitoring. In this presentation, we will explore how remote sensing and satellite-based technologies contribute to assessing soil health, specifically focusing on techniques and case studies. Please feel free to place your questions in the chat and our team will address them after the presentation. Now, to understand how remote sensing works, it's helpful to look at the electromagnetic spectrum, which ranges here from 100 nanometers to 1 meter. Along this spectrum, we use two main types of sensors in remote sensing. As you can see above the black line, there is active sensors, and below the black line is a passive sensor. Each serving different roles based on how they interact with energy. Active sensors generate their own energy and emit it towards the Earth's surface. They then measure the energy that reflects back to the sensors. This makes active sensors effective for gathering data in all weather conditions at any time of the day. Two common type of active sensors are LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. This LiDAR sensor emits light in the visible and near infrared spectrum. LiDAR is widely used for precise mapping, such as creating detailed topographic maps and assessing vegetation structure. Radar, on the other hand, which stands for radio detection and ranging, operates in the microwave spectrum. Radar can penetrate through clouds, vegetation, and even light rain, making it ideal for monitoring soil moisture, surface roughness, and structural details beneath vegetation. Passive sensors, which is shown below the black line, do not emit energy. Instead, they rely on detecting natural emitted energy or reflected from the Earth's surface, primarily from the sun. Because they depend on external light, passive sensors are generally limited to daytime and clear weather conditions. Two common types of passive sensors are optical sensors, which measure sunlight reflected in the visible and near infrared range. These sensors are excellent for assessing vegetation health, land cover, and surface albedo, as they capture the natural reflectance of objects. Thermal sensors, which detect long-wave infrared radiation emitted by the Earth's surface. Thermal sensors help monitor temperature variation, soil moisture, and other properties influenced by heat. In summary, active sensors like radar and LiDAR provide independent data collection through emitted energy, useful in all lighting and weather conditions. Meanwhile, passive sensors like optical and thermal rely on natural energy sources, making them excellent for capturing reflectance-based and thermal data during optimal conditions. Together, they allow us to observe a wide range of soil and environmental properties. To understand how remote sensing captures diverse data on Earth's surface, let's look at the three main types of remote sensing sensors used in soil and environmental monitoring: spectral reflectance sensors, thermal infrared imaging, and radar. Each of these sensor types operates within specific ranges of the electromagnetic spectrum, giving them unique capabilities for capturing data on soil, vegetation, and surface characteristics. Spectral reflectance sensors measure the amount of sunlight reflected from the Earth's surface, primarily in the visible, near-infrared, and short-wave infrared ranges. This category includes sensors with different bandwidth capacities, allowing them to capture detailed reflectance data for soil properties like organic matter, mineral content, and vegetation health. Reflectance-based sensors are highly effective for mapping soil attributes due to their sensitivity to surface color and textures. Thermal infrared imaging, on the other hand, are the sensors that operate in the long-wave infrared range and capture the heat emitted from the Earth's surface. These sensors are particularly useful for assessing soil moisture, temperature, and surface roughness. Within thermal infrared imaging, we have different classes of sensors that vary in their sensitivity to temperature changes, allowing us to detect subtle variation in soil moisture and compaction. Radar, radio detection and ranging, sensors work in the microwave range and use active energy emission, which means they can penetrate through clouds and vegetation to capture surface and subsurface data. Radar is highly effective for monitoring soil moisture, surface roughness, and structural details. Different radar sensors have varying wavelengths within the microwave spectrum, from short to long wavelengths, allowing some to penetrate deeper layers of vegetation or soil, while others capture more surface level data. Each of these sensor types is categorized based on their capacity to detect different properties as a specific electromagnetic threshold, allowing us to select the best sensor for specific environmental conditions and monitoring needs. Together, these sensor types provide a comprehensive toolkit for observing and analyzing soil and environmental health across a broad range of electromagnetic frequencies. On this slide, we have an illustration showing how spectral reflectance works in remote sensing. This process involves the reflectance of sunlight off the Earth's surface, which is then captured by satellite sensors. As you can see in the image, sunlight reaches the Earth's surface and interacts with various features like soil, vegetation, and water. Each type of surface absorbs and reflects light differently across different wavelengths. For example, healthy vegetation reflects strongly in the near-infrared range, while bare soil has a unique reflectance pattern in visible wavelengths. The satellite sensors capture this reflected light, which provides a spectral signature, a distinct pattern of reflectance across multiple wavelengths. These signatures allows us to identify and analyze surface materials and conditions accurately. Using spectral reflectance, we can gather critical information about soil properties, vegetation health, and land cover types, simply by analyzing how different surfaces reflect light. This makes spectral reflectance one of the foundational techniques in remote sensing, enabling us to monitor environmental and soil health on a large scale. All right. In this slide, let's put our focus into spectral reflectance. As you can see, here's a graph that shows the average spectral reflectance curves of soil at different moisture level. In the graph, we do have a dry soil. We do have a graph of a soil that has 4% moisture, 8% moisture, and 12% moisture. Notice how reflectance decreases as moisture content increases, particularly in the near-infrared range. This highlights how soil moisture levels can be analyzed using spectral reflectance. Spectral reflectance analysis, as you now know, is one of the most widely used remote sensing techniques for soil property assessment. The spectral reflectance process involves measuring the reflectance of electromagnetic radiation across different wavelengths, typically in the visible and near-infrared regions. Different soil properties exhibit unique spectral signatures, allowing for their identification and quantification. The reflectance patterns observed in different wavelength ranges can provide information about various soil properties. For example, the visible range can indicate the presence of organic matter and iron oxide minerals. Near-infrared reflectance is sensitive to soil moisture content and clay mineralogy. Shortwave infrared reflectance can be used to estimate soil organic content, carbon content, and identify specific minerals like gypsum or calcite. Now, Let's look at the thermal infrared imaging and how it differs from spectral reflectance sensors. On this slide, we see the electromagnetic spectrum with thermal infrared, or what we call it thermal IR, highlighted. Unlike spectral reflectance, which primarily operates in the visible and near infrared regions, thermal infrared imaging is located in the long wave infrared region, typically between 8 and 14 micrometers. This difference in wavelength is crucial. While spectral reflectance sensors captures light that reflects off surfaces, thermal infrared sensors measure heat emitted from the Earth's surface. This means they aren't affected by sunlight but instead detect temperature variations, making them ideal for assessing properties like soil moisture, surface roughness, and soil compaction. In summary, thermal infrared imaging operates in a unique part of the spectrum, allowing us to capture emitted heat data instead of just reflected light, adding another layer of information about soil and surface conditions. On this slide, we continue with thermal infrared imaging, a remote sensing method used to assess various soil properties by measuring the emitted thermal radiation from the Earth's surface in the long wave infrared region, typically between 8 and 14 micrometers. Thermal infrared imaging is especially valuable because soil temperature is closely influenced by factors like moisture content, soil texture, and organic matter. By analyzing thermal infrared images, we can estimate soil moisture level and pinpoint areas with different water availability, which can help in managing water resources and assessing drought conditions. Thermal infrared imaging can also reveal differences in soil compaction and fertility. For example, compacted soils tend to have lower porosity, which restricts water infiltration and causes surface temperatures to rise. This temperature increase, captured in thermal infrared imagery, provides insights into compaction patterns and potential use with soil structure. Now, looking at the graph below, we see the thermal infrared emissivity of soil samples at different water content level, ranging from dry soil to 38.9% water content. As the water content increases, you will notice that emissivity changes, particularly in how the soil emits heat. This variation helps us estimate soil moisture content and understand soil structure based on thermal properties. In summary, thermal infrared imaging provides us with a unique perspective on soil properties by focusing on emitted heat, which differs fundamentally from visible and near-infrared reflectance. It allows us to assess soil moisture, compaction, and temperature-related properties effectively. Right, let's move on to our next slide, where we talk about LiDAR. On this slide, we focus on radar and its unique position within the electromagnetic spectrum. Radar operates in the microwave region, which ranges from centimeter to meter wavelengths. This positioning gives radar the ability to penetrate through clouds, light vegetation, and even light rain, allowing it to capture surface and subsurface details under conditions where other sensors may be limited. As an active sensor, radar generates its own energy and measures the reflections from the Earth's surface. This independence from sunlight means radar can capture data day or night and in almost any weather, making it ideal for continuous monitoring. The microwave wavelength range makes radar particularly effective for applications like soil moisture detection, surface roughness assessment, and vegetation structure analysis. This ability to detect surface and subsurface characteristics provide essential information in soil and environmental monitoring, especially in conditions that would obscure optical sensors. On this slide, we are looking at the series of scatter plots illustrating different feature types and soil salinization levels within different feature space. As you can see, the top part of the scatter plot, which is image A, is mostly covered by water bodies. Image B, which is highlighted in a green, is a plant cover. As we move lower in the scatter plot, we observe areas of slight, moderate, and finally severe salinization. The final image shows the spatial distribution patterns of different salinization level across the landscape, helping us visualize where each level of salinization is located. Basically, this is a single image that whose scatter plot was plotted in a remote sensing tool. And then if we highlight the scatter plots from running from bottom to from higher to lower end, we are able to classify different types of soil salinization within a given space. Radar remote sensing therefore utilizes microwave signals to assess various soil properties. These microwave penetrates the soil surface, allowing us to measure subsurface characteristics, which makes radar an effective tool for monitoring soil health and salinity levels. Radar sensors achieve this by sending electromagnetic waves down into the soil, where they interact differently based on the soil's moisture content, texture, and surface roughness. This means that radar can provide detailed insights into soil conditions that may not be visible at the surface, such as moisture variations and salinization, as demonstrated in these scatter plots. Now we have covered the topics on satellite remote sensors. We have talked about surface reflectance, thermal infrared imaging, and radar remote sensing. Now let's move on to our next topic, which is remote sensing matrices. On this slide, we cover key remote sensing matrices that are essential for assessing soil and vegetation interactions, particularly in relation to microbial habitats and soil health. NDVI, which is Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, is a widely used metric that measures vegetation greenness. This index reflects plants' productivity, which correlates with soil nutrient levels and microbial richness. Another such vegetation index is Enhanced Vegetation Index, or EVI in short form. EVI builds on NDVI by improving sensitivity to vegetation structure. This helps assess how the plant canopy influences soil moisture and temperature, which are crucial for supporting microbial habitats. EVI is particularly useful in areas where dense vegetation, where NDVI might be less accurate. Similarly, SAVI, which is a soil adjusted vegetation index, it adjusts for the background effects of soil, especially in areas with sparse vegetation, where bare soil can impact reflectance measurements. This index enhances the accuracy of soil moisture and organic matter estimation, both of which directly impact microbial communities. As you can see, the formula for NDVI is shown below as an example. If the near infrared value for a pixel, as you can see in the formula below, we have calculated some NDVIs as well. As you can see, if the near infrared value for pixel is 48 NIR value and the red band value is 6, We plug those values into a formula, which is this formula, to get an NDVI value, which helps us understand the vegetation health in that given pixel. These matrices, as you saw, three were the very basic examples. NDVI, EVI, and SAVI are essential tools in remote sensing. These vegetation indices provide unique insights into the relationship between soil, vegetation, and microbial ecosystems. Here on this slide, we have a table that shows formulas for several remote sensing indices beyond NDVI, EVI, and SAVI. The goal here is to highlight that a range of remote sensing matrices can provide valuable insights into different soil properties. Let's go over a few examples. Soil Moisture Index, or SMI, measures soil moisture levels, which are essential for assessing water availability and understanding soil health, especially in arid and agricultural regions. Similarly, NDVI, as we discussed on the previous slide, NDVI is a primary metric for assessing vegetation health, which indirectly helps us understand soil nutrient levels. SAVI adjusts NDVI to account for bare soil background, especially useful in areas with sparse vegetation cover. NDSI, or what we call it, a normalized difference salinity index, helps detect salinity levels in soil, which can be crucial for monitoring soil quality in regions prone to salinization due to irrigation practices or natural conditions. Soil brightness index, or what we call it an SBI, is an index that assesses soil brightness, which can indicate soil composition, such as the presence of organic material or mineral content. These are some of the examples of vegetation indices, or the matrices that we call it. Together, these indices, soil moisture, salinity, brightness, and more, allows us to comprehensively study soil properties and conditions, each contributing to a unique information that enhances our understanding of soil health. Considering we talked about remote sensing matrices, let's focus on one of the case study conducted by Liu and his colleagues, where they have used remote sensing matrices to derive useful information as part of the study. This, as I mentioned, this study was conducted by Liu and his colleagues, which focused on the arid and semi-arid regions of northern China. The study aimed to examine the relationship between vegetation productivity and soil bacterial richness, offering insights into how remote sensing matrices can help assess soil health indirectly. Here's an overview of the approach. The researchers used a satellite-derived NDVI and GPP, which is gross primary productivity, to evaluate vegetation productivity across the desert landscape. At the same time, they analyzed soil bacterial richness using high throughput sequencing techniques to capture the diversity of soil microbial communities. The key finding of the case study was that they observed a strong positive correlation between vegetation productivity as measured by NDVI and soil bacterial diversity. This means that as vegetation productivity increased, so did the richness of soil bacterial species. When I say vegetation productivity, I mean with an increase in NDVI, there was increase in the richness of soil bacterial species. Similar patterns were observed across multiple taxonomic levels, suggesting a consistent relationship between plant productivity and microbial diversity. The study identified resource availability and species competition mechanisms influencing diversity, meaning areas with higher vegetation productivity supported more diverse microbial communities due to greater resource availability. Now, if you look at the graph on the right hand side of the screen, you will see the correlation between NDVI and species richness. As species richness increases, the NDVI values also increase, indicating a productive and diverse soil environment. What this study does is it highlights how remote sensing matrices like NDVI and GPP can be used to indirectly measure aspects of soil health, such as microbial diversity and nutrient availability, by monitoring vegetation productivity. This indirect approach is incredibly useful for large-scale assessment where direct soil sampling may not be feasible. By using vegetation as a proxy, remote sensing provides valuable insights into underlying soil conditions across vast regions. Now that we have talked about key remote sensing matrices, let's move on to some of the key techniques used in soil mapping. Each of these techniques offer unique insights into soil properties and conditions, allowing us to conduct detailed soil assessments over large areas. Spectral unmixing. It is a technique that separates mixed pixels into different components, helping us quantify soil elements such as minerals and organic matters. Principal component analysis, or PCA, reduces noise in spectral data by isolating significant features that represent key soil characteristics, allowing us to highlight patterns without interference from less important data. Change detection. This technique involves monitoring soil degradation, erosion, or bare soil exposure by analyzing spectral changes over time. This technique is crucial for tracking the impact of land management practices and environmental changes on soil health over time. Machine learning algorithms. These are the models. There are different machine learning models that can be found within this domain, such as random forest. These models are used to predict soil properties by training on labeled data, making them effective for mapping soil properties across large areas with high accuracy. Supervised classification is another such technique where the algorithm is trained with known soil samples to classify soil types and conditions in new areas, providing a systematic approach to soil sampling. Similarly, but not the last technique, one of the technique is spectral index calculation, which, like NDVI and SAVI, allows us to assess soil quality indirectly by looking at vegetation cover, soil salinity, and moisture. These are some of the techniques, not all of the techniques, just to let you know, for the soil mapping. As you can see on the right hand side, we have one image which illustrates a bit of a working mechanism of spectral unmixing. In a single pixel containing a mix of grass, trees, and bare soil, what spectral unmixing does is it can identify the percentage of each component within that pixel. That means in a given pixel, if there is a certain percentage considering the pixel of an image could be 15 meter by 15 meter or 30 meter by 30 meter. That is a large area. If you look that into a ground, one pixel for 30 meters is around 900 meters square. So within that land, there could be a mixture of multiple vegetation or soil components like grasses, trees, bare soil, etc. What spectral unmixing does is it will help to calculate the percentage of each component within that pixels. So that means this becomes is essential for precise soil composition analysis, especially in a mixed land cover areas. Together, these remote sensing techniques gives us a powerful tools for soil mapping, helping us understand soil properties and conditions in a way that's both efficient and scalable. Now that we have talked about key remote sensing techniques, let's look into a case study which was conducted by Sevin and his colleagues, which focuses on assessing long-term changes in soil health in the Belgorod region of Russia, an area that is heavily used for agriculture with large expanses of Chernozem soils. Chernozems are highly fertile and crucial for agriculture, but they are also vulnerable to degradation processes such as erosion and humus depletion. The objective of this study was to evaluate changes in soil properties over time due to intensive agricultural practices and climate variation. The methodology undertaken for this study, researchers used Landsat thematic mapper data, which is Landsat TEM data from 1985 and 2010, focusing on cloud-free images captured in spring to analyze bare soil conditions. Using spring images means that they ensured minimal vegetation, allowing the focus to remain on soil rather than plant cover. They examined spectral reflectance differences between 1985 and 2010 across visible and near-infrared bands by applying NDVI thresholds. They isolated pixels with minimal vegetation, ensuring that only bare soil pixels were included in the analysis. Changes in soil reflectance across these images were linked to humus content, moisture level, and carbonate content, which helped establish spectral profiles for degraded versus non-degraded soils. The workflow image here illustrates the process of using Landsat images from 1985 and 2010 to calculate differences in spectral reflectance. By comparing these two scenes, researchers could identify areas with significant changes in soil properties, providing insights into the impact of agricultural practices and climate. Now, let's talk about the key finding from the case study. Approximately 89% of the study area showed no significant spectral change between 1985 and 2010, indicating high stability of Chernozem soils. Changes were detected in about 11% of the area, predominantly related to humus and moisture content. Decreases in humus were observed mainly due to soil erosion on slopes and depletion on flat lands. Some areas showed an increase in humus, potentially due to recent sustainable land management practices. Changes in moisture were primarily found in lowland areas and river valleys, likely due to natural soil evolution or increased irrigation efforts. Moisture content generally showed an increasing trend. Increase in reflectance in visible and near-infrared bands were linked to humus loss, while decreases were associated with higher moisture or carbon content, depending on reflectance pattern. Now, where does the remote sensing application came into play? Let's talk about that part. By employing remote sensing techniques like change detection in combination with NDVI, the study effectively isolated bare soil areas from vegetated region, ensuring that only relevant soil data were analyzed. NDVI masking allowed for precise monitoring of bare soil, while change detection applied to multi-temporal images enabled the identification and quantification of changes in soil properties, such as humus content and moisture level. This approach demonstrates how satellite-based remote sensing techniques can be integrated to track long-term soil health changes, supporting decision-making for sustainable agricultural practices. Now that we have discussed about remote sensing sensors, remote sensing matrices, and remote sensing techniques, remote sensing doesn't come up as a very mature or foolproof technology. It has its own limitations. While we have made significant advances in different domains of applicability of remote sensing, there are still several key limitations that impact the precision, accessibility, and effectiveness of this technology. Let's go through each of these limitations and explore how machine learning and AI are helping to address some of these gaps on our next presentation. Getting into the limitations, census limitation is one such limitation that a current remote sensing technology faces. The current remote sensing sensors has a resolution constraints. That is, the data available or the images available in a public domain has a very coarse resolution data sets, often lacking a fine scale detail needed to capture intricate soil properties, especially subsurface characteristics. Additionally, many sensors have limited spectral bands, which restricts our ability to detect soil attributes, and also considering they have poor depth penetration, which also limits insights into deeper soil layers. Similarly, data availability is another limitation. High resolution public data is limited, and many regions lack global data sets with soil specific spectral bands needed for comprehensive analysis. Obviously, hyperspectral data or LiDAR data that we talk about, we don't have any LiDAR data yet from a space point of view. We do have our hyperspectral data, but everything, all of those data sets are available in a commercial basis. The inconsistent availability of these data sets restricts global and regional studies, making it challenging to analyze soil properties uniformly across different areas. Similarly, the cost of commercial data is one of the other limitations, considering the higher cost. Access to high resolution specialized sensor data often comes at a higher cost, as I said, with restrictive subscription and licensing model that makes commercial data prohibitively expensive for smaller projects, for academic research, and then also ongoing soil monitoring efforts. Another challenge is currently remote sensing faces is processing challenges. It requires extensive pre-processing to make it suitable for soil analysis. And the lack of standardized soil models complicates the process further. The high computational demands of processing large data sets add complexity, making it necessary to have advanced technical expertise, which is one other limitations within a remote sensing domain. Similarly, validation limitations is another such limitation in remote sensing domain. Accurate remote sensing requires ground truth data to validate results, but obtaining consistent and high quality validation data across diverse landscapes is challenging. This is where this limitation affects the accuracy and reliability of soil assessments derived from remote sensing. While remote sensing offers powerful tools for soil analysis, these limitations highlight the need for ongoing technical advancements. The integration of machine learning and AI is helping to bridge these gaps by enhancing data quality, increasing accessibility, and automation, also helping with automating complex processes, making soil remote sensing more effective and practical for widespread use. Now this brings to the end of the presentation. These are the references, as you can see, that has been used to prepare this presentation pack. In summary, with this presentation, we have explored the diverse applications of remote sensing in soil health monitoring, including the use of various sensors, key remote sensing matrices, and advanced techniques. These tools have proven to be invaluable in providing scalable, efficient, and data-driven insights into soil health. However, we must also acknowledge the limitations, such as data resolution challenges and the need for field validation, which highlights the importance of integrating remote sensing with traditional methods. As we move forward, remote sensing offers immense potential to revolutionize soil health monitoring, enabling sustainable land management and supporting global food security. Let us continue to innovate and collaborate to address these challenges and unlock the full potential of this transformative technology. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.